in my campaign, I had them hit another dungeon first to get them to second level, and then they head towards the village of Hamlet, following these rumors of banditry and questioning the bandits that they capture, and leading them to the village of Hamlet, including the NPCs in the village of Hamlet, giving them rumors and advice about where to find the source of this hideout is, which is the Moat House. Hello, this is David with 3 Arcs. Today we're going to go ahead and talk about Etterboak. Now it's official. The city of Verbobonc is done. I just added the Wrinkle Academy today because we have players that are dungeon masters that are running their campaign in the year 596, 598 Common Year. And the Wrinkle Academy by Magister Har, he was a Magister over at Silver Consortium, but in 596 Common Year, or 592 Common Year, he went ahead and opened up his own school to target a certain demographic of citizens in Verbobonc area, mostly the common folk. And I'm running my campaign in the 576 Common Year, so that hasn't happened yet. But I still put the location there for other Dungeon Masters to use. That way they can have it for their campaign. So that's done. I completed the Township of Etterboek. That's 10 miles south of the city of Verbobonc, on the way to the village of Hamlet. So if you have players coming and going to the big city, the closest big city in this campaign, that will be the city of Verbobonc. Because that's where all the leaders are. That's where all the core of the onion. That's where all the layers of the nobles and rich merchants are involved with the things that are happening in the area, politic-wise, with the lands, and also the temple agents of the Temple of Elemental Evil. And so if you want to incorporate that, make this like sandbox type game into more of a Game of Thrones type game where there's a lot of politics involved, and get your players engaged and invested in the world to bring it to life, to make it seem more real, that's a good way to do it. And logically, the people that are on top, the people that have enough power to support the Temple of Elemental Evil, logistics and funds and slaves and supplies, things like that, and recruitment, they would have to be somebody with a lot of power to be able to not just support the Temple of Elemental Evil, but to be able to support them without tipping off any of the authorities. To be powerful enough to be able to keep that stuff undercover for them not to be able to get discovered yet before the Temple of Elemental Evil is ready to attack again, depending on your campaign. So as the players go back and forth through the Viscounty, investigating what's happening in the area, like the bandit raids and things like that, and other dungeons, because you really need to get these players up levels before they tackle the big module, including the T1 module, which is the Moat House. If you read all the forums over the years, of decades, you'll see 90% of the testimonials have been reported from their games is the players got overwhelmed, they got slaughtered, they got captured, or they just ran away at the end boss, Lareth the Beautiful, the cleric at the end of the Moat House. And it's just too powerful, it's too overwhelming. So the advice that the DMs in the past have given is you need your players to be at least second level before they get to the bottom. And I think, the module is balanced to be that way, to where by the time you do get down there, if you were to clean out every location in the Moat House and also the surrounding area, you should get enough experience points to get most of the players to second level before you face off with Lareth. But a lot of times that's not the case, and even at second level, it's really hard to pull off. It's a really hard encounter, so you need to have them at least be second level. And so in my campaign, I had them hit another dungeon first to get them to second level, and then they head towards the village of Hamlet, following these rumors of banditry and questioning the bandits that they capture, and leading them to the village of Hamlet, including the NPCs in the village of Hamlet, giving them rumors and advice about where to find the source of this hideout is, which is the Moat House. And that leads the players there. Hopefully, they're second level, or even a thief in the party might be third, because they don't need a lot of experience points to go up a level. We're talking about traditional Dungeons & Dragons here. Just to remind you again, this campaign website, the Verbobonc campaign of the year 576 Common Year, is system neutral. I don't mention anything in the articles that point towards any kind of system, any kind of rules. I keep everything lore friendly, and so that way anybody can use this campaign for their, this lore for their campaign. Also, I try to keep this timeline friendly, so you can run it in 576 Common here or the year 592 or after. And some of the critical articles that don't really exist until later in the timeline, I put a little note there saying, this, like the Wrinkle Academy didn't open until 592 Common year, and I put a note there stating that, so that way the Dungeon Master will be aware of it. So, as I said before, the players are going back and forth through the Viscounty, doing what they do, adventuring, following up on leads, going back, reporting to the authorities, to their masters, to the church heads, training, supplies, resting up, getting answers, research, prophecies, all that stuff that players need to get back to the city for. Because none of these small villages are capable of making any armor more than chain if you're lucky. And so any big money item won't be for sale there in these small villages either. You really need to get to the major city to be able to do that, especially when the parties start gaining a lot of wealth. What are they going to do with all that money? And that's where the big city comes in, because there's a bank there and there's churches and things like that. And then, you got clerics in the party, and you got paladins and wizards, and they all have authority. They have the organizations they belong to. The head of these organizations are there in the city. You can always have them report to the local one, like, for example, St. Cuthbert, the chapel in the village of Hamlet. You could have that be the primary focus of engagement for that cleric if he was a cleric of St. Cuthbert, where he's always reporting back to him, as an example, because there's other churches in the area, and every village has a number of churches and druid groves and things like that. Etterboak is the same thing. So Etterboak is officially done. It's a step on the way to the Viscounty. If you're walking, usually players don't get more than 10 miles a day, so that's one day's travel, and you have to stay the night at Etterboak. If players have horses and wagons, then usually they just bypass it. They ride through. It's fully keyed, all the buildings and the description and flavor text and things like that. So at least you'll have something to, to tell them what it's like to go through there if they don't stop. But if they do, you're ready for that. Also, there's quests that start from there as well. So if you have a need of a quest, like the Etters, it is a good example. I'll go over that when I show you the map. So we're going to go over the map, and I'll show you the different locations, and then I'll tell you I'll point out some of the quests that you could introduce to your campaign to help the campaign go along, and to help the campaign along and get the players invested in the area and find out what's happening. And that way it's a good source of rumors and getting involved more in the campaign world. All right, as always, I start off with the main campaign page on the website, the Verbobonc Campaign Guide, the year 576 Common Year. It's a Temple of Elemental Evil sandbox type campaign. And all that means is the whole entire area of 500 square miles is fully flushed out and keyed. So that way, no matter what the players do, if they decide to go to that village or that river or that lake or whatever, it's fully ready to go. It's keyed as much or as more as the village of Hamlet. So that way, the Dungeon Master won't be caught flat-footed without any lore information, which is basically how the current state of Greyhawk of Verbobonc area is right now. And to remind you again where I got this lore, it's all based on the Living Greyhawk series of modules that came out between the year 2000 and 2008. Living Greyhawk was based on 3rd edition D&D, and all those authors from different states of the United States actually wrote hundreds of modules in those years for each region of Greyhawk. I'm a big fan of the Verbobonc area because that's where the Temple of Elemental Evil is, the greatest campaign ever made. And I want to turn that into an epic campaign. The epic campaign is not just running the module from the pages. That, to me, in my opinion, that's boring and lame. And that's not a sign of a dungeon master that takes his campaign seriously with a lot of prep. He just wings it. But that kind of module, you really can't do that. Yes, there are modules you can. And Old School Essentials and Dalmanwood, they create modules for that. The layout and the descriptions of those modules are perfect for something like that. But there's no way you're going to be able to do it well running the Temple of Elemental Evil from the module from the pages. It's so dense with lore and convoluted and lost and spread out and sporadic, all this information throughout hundreds of pages, that you could never find this stuff while you're at the table. That a dungeon master would have to take a great amount of notes, not just using a yellow highlighter to find this information, but actually take extensive notes. Better yet is rewrite the whole thing. It's what I'm doing in World Anvil. So that way it's more accessible and referenceable in the game. You organize it better so you can run it better, and you can solve some problems away from the table before it happens. which we'll get into later because there's a lot going on for that. So this is the main web page, and my splash page tells you what this whole campaign's all about and how it follows the WotC fan content policy. All the writing is in my own words. All the artwork is mine. All the maps I've created using Wonderdraft and Dungeon Draft. Some of the older maps I used a mapping program from Steam. I can't remember what it's called, but it was pretty bad. This is the Viscounty map. And I'm always looking for people to collaborate with. We all talk on Discord every day for like 5, 6, 7 hours a day. And this is all I do is I work on this full-time for months. And we got a bunch of people on there running their campaigns. And now every time I write an article or a piece of artwork, I put it across, put it to them, and they give me their advice or their opinion. And we discuss things like, what about this lord or that history or this point, of a contention that we're having a problem with in the campaign. So we talk about this stuff and try to work it out. And there's people from all over the world in our Discord, working on this stuff. So this is one thing that I always bring up. This is a good example of what I would bring up is this map right here. So this map isn't the full article map. It's embedded on this web page. So it's limited view. But if you click on open full size in the bottom right hand corner, you'll see the big full size of it. I'm not going to do that right now because that's not what this video is about. But while it's in this state, look at how big those icons are. So if I put my cursor over each one of them, they don't pop up or anything because it's embedded on this web page. It's supposed to be interactive with pop-ups and everything. And I'll show you that in a bit. But anyway, this is the Viscounty. I probably should make those tags smaller. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. Talk to people on Discord about it. Scroll down. This is a video I made of introduction to the Greyhawk world with music. It's pretty good. People that want to, find out what the feel of Greyhawk is all about. And of course, my links to all my shops, my Patreon and stuff like that. By the way, anything I do for this website is free. This website's free. There's no paywalls involved because that's the rules I have to follow. So anything I create for this campaign will have to be free. I don't, charge or sell this stuff. I'd like to do that in the future, but I have to write it in a way where it's not, for Greyhawk. It'd have to be generic. That could be used in any campaign. So on the left-hand side is my table of contents. So we're going to go ahead. First thing we're going to do is we're going to click on the atlas and go to Viscounty of Verbobonc. And I got 2 villages. So the city, which is down here, the city's done. And I did a couple of videos on that already. And Etterboak is done. Etterboak. You guys want to correct me? All right, now I'm currently working on Penwick. I'm halfway done. So you guys need to jump in on Discord and we got to work on this stuff, right? And we had a big discussion about the lords there. So we're still kind of working that out. So anyway, this video is all about Etterboak. So I'll click on that. These are all the articles. It's a small, bustling township located 10 miles south of the city of Verbobonc. It's all stated right here. A population of 300 people. It talks about the trade on the Nub Run and the surrounding farmlands and things like that, and local landmarks. So on both sides of the screen, there's the names of the locations in the village. On the right-hand side, I put little blurbs to kind of tell you what that location is about, so you don't have to click on every one of them to find something, because some of these names of these locations are not evident to what it is. Medissa Bakery is evident. Obviously, it's a bakery, but some of these other things are not. So I put little blurbs here on the right. So you can click on either one of these to open it up. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on Etterbook, the actual article itself, which is one of these articles in this list. So I'll click on Etterbook, take a look at that, and that is just a banner. It's not representative of exactly what Etterbook looks like, but this is the embedded map of Etterbook, which I created in Wonderdraft. On the right-hand side is the arms, coat of arms of House Langmuir, and with a strength and iron will is their tagline. And they got key figures on the right-hand side stating who's had anything to do with this location. On the left, I usually do add this quite often, but not all the time. But this is flavor text. The reason this flavor text is here is not because it's a good thing to have, but I use it in my campaign. So I originally created these articles for my campaign. And I know what I need to run my campaign. And I need flavor text because flavor text springboards role-playing for me. It's like, try to speak like a different language like Irish or something, or you get an Irish accent. You can't, things like that, it's really hard to do off the cuff. But if you have some keywords, that you could use and to get you in that frame of mind, you can start talking more in that style. Same thing here. This flavor text gets you going, and then you keep role playing from here as a springboard. And I don't necessarily have to read this verbatim. You can paraphrase it, but it's good to have a full verbal second person description of what the place looks like riding into town. And then we have the actual description of this place and their historical background. And all this stuff goes in depth, but as you can see, this layout here, you notice it's bullet points and short and brief, and it's very terse. It's not wordy, and it's all categorized correctly with actual useful headings. Because if the modules from the past in the 70s and 80s are the best modules ever written. They're great. They're some of the best times I've ever had writing D&D, and they're fun to read. But running from them from the pages is something else because they're not very well laid out. That's the beginning of the role-playing scene, and they've come a long way since then when it comes to layout and information. So I took my cues from Old School Essentials, the way they do their layout. Gave me ideas of using a lot of bullet points and things like that. This article doesn't really have a lot of bullet points, but I do have it laid out. See, each paragraph is only 2 to 3 or 4 sentences each. It's not a whole wall like this original information was. Big difference. Also, the original information, it wasn't much either on a lot of these locations. It was hardly any information. So I expanded these locations 100-fold, and you'll see that. A lot more information here, including the families, the wife, the children, the politics, the history, all that's been added to these locations for a dungeon master to be able to handle any kind of situation that pops up with their players. So on the right-hand side, we at the beginning, at the top, is the key figures. Scroll down, and you have the key places like the Langmuir Manor, the Temple of the Four Winds. That supports the Ardi race, the 4 elemental gods of nature. It's their version of the Old Faith. It's not the Old Faith, it's just their version of it. And then, of course, there's the resident of Winston Jogalus, which is basically a local noble. So that's the key. And Langmuir Manor is the key location of House Langmuir. That's located here in Etterboak. And this is the domain, the barony of Langmuir. On the right, it shows you the population and then the more included locations, descriptions. And if you put your cursor over it like that, you can actually get a pop-up with the article. So at the beginning is flavor text, like I said before, and then the whole article, but this is not the full article. If you scroll to the bottom, it'll say read full article, and all the artwork and charts and everything will come up with the real full article. This is just a shortened version of the article. So it's easy to find something that you're looking for without having to open up everything, getting all these web pages open. So let's go ahead and start with, at the bottom right-hand corner, I added a map that's unkeyed for if you need it for anything. If you want to print it up, whatever, you're welcome to. On the left-hand side, there's the politics of Etterboak. And I'm not going to get into a lot of the details of what I've written here. Or this information, a lot of this information came from the Living Greyhawk modules. So the Living Greyhawk modules actually did create all the nobles. And that's where I got this information from. But like I said before, I expanded it 100-fold. A lot of information was missing. And a lot of it was contradictory or it wasn't quite right. And so I had to be sorted out. And I have to go through all these module adventures from Living Greyhawk to figure this stuff out and talk to my friends, the people that collaborate on the Discord channel to figure this stuff out. So this is Etterbook, and House Langmuir has its own article. It's an organization. It's not a person. It's not a place. It's an organization, and that's what this article is. So everything you need to know about House Langmuir is here in this article. And everything you want to know about Lord Ludovic Langmuir has his own article too. And everything's all interconnected. All the articles are put that way you can navigate this stuff and find information easily. And so Ludovic has his own politics and personality and motivations and things like that too. And so does his mother, which is Godleva. And she's also known as the Iron Lady, and she's the power behind the throne or behind the household. And there's a whole bunch of politics and quest things going on with her. So you got to remember these modules I'm talking about, the Living Greyhawk modules, they haven't happened yet. Now, those modules happened at a later date as well. They started at like 592 Common Year and went forward in time. But I'm using this information to run my campaign in 576 Common Year with this information used as future events. Now, these future events don't have to happen on the dates that they originally set in those modules. I'm going to use them as I see fit in my campaign for my players. So these are fun, interesting things. These NPCs, these locations, and these organizations exist no matter what timeline you're using. They still exist even in 576 Common Year. It just happens that the Living Greyhawk modules use those events in their timeline, but it doesn't mean I can't use those events in my timeline too. And I can use them in order as the time goes by through the campaign. To get into a little bit more detail, I'll paraphrase some of this stuff and point out things that I was thinking of as I was putting this together. So the township falls under the jurisdiction of House Langmuir. It's historically controlled by the Jugulis family, a minor noble in the area, and he does have a manor in town. Over the years, Etterboak has developed into a thriving trade hub, thanks because of its proximity to the high road and the fertile farmlands around, and of course it's right next to on the Nibes Run, which is another trade river that you use to shuttle merchandise from city of Verbobonc all the way down to Cienega Valley, which is as far as the boats can go. That's not a small fishing boat. Then the next thing is the relationships of House Langmuir and what's going on in the area. Then I point out the relationship between House Langmuir and Winston Jugulis, Lord Jugulis. It's a feudal obligation with mutual benefits. Then there's the relationship with the Church of Trithrin. Now, Trithrin is not in this village because they're at odds. Trithrin is all at war with this household because they're the worst of the worst. They're greedy, they're manipulative, and all they care about is money and power and prestige. And Trithrin's totally against all that. So if there's ever be a cleric or paladin of Trithrin in the campaign, they would really hate this household and what they're doing to the people here, using them pretty much as close to being slaves. So the current affairs is economic strain and there's unrest. It's imposed by House Langmuir, unrest among the townsfolk. There's been sparks of minor uprisings too, but they're swiftly quelled by Langmuir regulators, and that's what they call the militia, the local guard, the Langmuir regulators, which is hated by the local folk. 300 people, well organized. Village here. The land does belong to Winston Jugulis, but under the House Langmuir's influence. He rarely leaves his villa, so it's more a little bit of politics going on here. He's delegating responsibilities to his daughter, Paloma, who is well loved, and her kindness and dedication to the townsfolk. You'll find out more information about her in the Winston Jugulis article. The townsfolk suffers from the demands of Lord Ludovic, with rumors of slander occasionally stirring unrest, and the Baroness, known as the Iron Lady, she enforces strict labor expectations. Also, the Church of Trithrin is critical of their nobility, adding to the political tension. This household belongs to the Council of Lords in the city of Verbobonc. And, in the Viscounty gets, his ear filled full of this stuff all the time, trying to calm things down and keep everything under control, as well as the churches, too. So that's the basics of what this town's about in this main article. To get into more detail, you have to read the House Langmuir article, and of course the Iron Lady and Lord Ludovic himself to get more details of what's happening. And then the local lord too has his own article, but we're not going to get into that right now. First thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the map. Hello down here. This is Etterboak. It's a small village in the House Langmuir's domain, their barony, and it's right on the river of the Nibs Run. And they have their own docks too, so because it has a lot of trade coming up and down this river from the city of Verbobonc and beyond. And it keeps going downriver down to Cienega Valley, which is another township full of vineyards and other farmlands. So the map itself has the links on there, just the numbers. And if you put your cursor over a number, it's going to tell you the actual name of the location and a little blurb of what that location is. That way it'll help you navigate. I didn't want to put the names in the location. I didn't want to put the names in the tags because I thought it would use up too much room of the map. It'd get really busy. But if somebody wanted to see something a little different, let me know. But I have it set up for this right now, and it coincides with the numbered tags, in the main article as well. So we'll start off with 1. So 1, we'll scroll all the way in. That way you can zoom in. This is about as close as you can zoom in right now on this map. So it's the Etterboak Town Square. It's a bustling heart of the township, and it's situated along the banks of the Nibs Run and vital hub of trade and social interaction. So we'll click on the article, and it'll pop up on the left-hand side. Now, this is not the full article. It's the abbreviated one of all the pertinent facts you would need to know, but no extra artwork or any other information like that. To be able to read all that, you have to click down below under Read Full Article to be able to read it. I have edit marker and edit map at the bottom because I'm the publisher, I'm the creator, owner of this website. You won't see that link. So at the beginning, there's a flavor text again, which says, I find very useful. You wander through the streets of Etterbook and come across the market, which is located in the disorganized series of large tents. It seems that the vendors are organized by a social class to which the vendor caters. The market is known for having either absolute trash or total bargains and rather dirty. In the center is a large weathered stone statue of a man rearing a magnificent warhorse brandishing a lance. The bronze plate emblazoned into this base reads, Dithyrus Langmuir, Vice-Royalty of Featherbook. That's an ancient title because Featherbook used to be called Featherbook centuries ago. To the side of the statue is a double post, a notice board. So it's the hub of commerce. It's a full detailed description of what you can find here at the marketplace. And if we click on the full article, you come across, as you can see, the full article has better formatting and color and artwork too. And on the right-hand side, I added some more stuff. So the left-hand side is the stuff you'd normally see as a pop-up, but you won't see the stuff on the right. The right side is more statistical facts and artwork. And also sometimes I add bonus material. Like on the right-hand side is the stalls. I gave like 6 example stalls of what you could find there. The pie seller and the berry vendor and the cheese merchant, a trinket trader, things like that. And then on the message poll, it's just information of what things you would normally find on the message poll. So that will come in useful in the campaign when you're running it. If your players are there shopping, at the marketplace, they'll come across this stuff and you can tell them what they see, what they find, and role play from there. Now, this artwork is representative of generally what it looks like. Give you an idea. If you don't like that kind of art style, or you think the picture's off, like it's not exactly what you thought it should look like, then don't use it. It's just there as a representation of what it could look like, or generally what it kind of looks like. That way you can role play from that. You're welcome to share it with your players, or just keep it hidden and just use your own artwork, or just describe it in role playing. And, that's what the flavor text is for. We're going to return back to the map. We saw number 1, so we're going to go to number 2, which is the docks. The docks is the river docks. They facilitate the goods between Verbobonc City and Cienega Valley. And we click on the article. It goes into detail about who's there and what's there, and NPCs as well. So we better look at that. There's a Langmuir shipping office there. So that's the officer himself that's in charge. He's making sure it's his duty to collect manifest and log what's being transferred, what's being sold, brought to port and away. He keeps track of this stuff for the house and the village. And also he collects taxes, taxed by the Langmuirs, because they're really diligent. If you read their background, they pay their taxes. That's why the Viscount can't do too much about them. So the river docks, east side of town, along the river banks, it's a vital hub of commerce and trade, the flow of goods, what it looks like on the outside, the wooden plank docks, the interior, what it looks like inside. I noticed my highlights a little bit off there. Background and history. I try to keep this looking good. Background and history of the place, and who runs it. It's Lieutenant Aldric Thorne, and the history of the docks and the politics. So his political role and his economic impact on the governance here, which is basically House Langmuir, and his duties of the lieutenant and the guards. They got services here. They talk about what's typically trade goods that come through here. And then I have a description of the actual shipping office, which is the building at the docks. And basically it's called the dock house. And they tax collection, goods inspection, maintenance of the manifest, and personnel. So everything you need to know about this place. And on the right-hand side is his personality traits and physical description, so you can role-play him. I pretty much put everything you need to know in these locations when it comes to the NPCs, except for stats. Sometimes I do add stats, but I keep it very system-neutral stats, like strength, intelligence, hit points, and things like that. But I don't put anything like special abilities or anything like that, usually. Because a lot of that stuff was originally in 3rd edition anyway, and nobody really uses that anymore. So I just keep it pretty generic, and I didn't put any stats for this guy because why bother? The players are really going to fight him, and if they do, a good dungeon master can just bring the stats up himself, depending on the game system. There's a lieutenant in the monster manual, depending on which game system you're using. You can always do that, or just make it up yourself. Let's go back. I'm not going to go over every location. I'm just going to point it out, but the important ones that you need to know, the infrastructure should be seen. I call this Browitz Bridge. I don't have an article for Browitz Bridge, but it's there by name only. But a lot's going on down by the river. Let's go ahead and take a look at location number 3, which is another big place. This is a very important location, which is right next to the bridge. It's the Radiant Sanctuary of Etterboek. Now, this is a cathedral, and it's round. It's a spiritual center for the township. Villagers gather to pray to various lawful good deities supported by House Langmuir. It's approved by that house, under the guidance of one of the priests there. He's a priest of Row. So let's take a look at this church here. And everything you need to know about it is here in this article, obviously. But let's go ahead and take a look at the full article. So that's a picture of it. I wasn't able to create a river next to it, but that's the best I could do to represent what the church looks like as a building. But I have a description with no flavor text this time. Now, usually when I create a location and an NPC, I'll add quotes, typical things they might say. Like on the right-hand side, unity in faith, strength, and virtue. That's pretty much the dogma quote of that location, which the high priest uses. So we have a description of the location, what it looks like, the architecture, the interior, the gardens, things like that. The historical background, where this came from, why it exists in the first place. This gives something for the non-player character to talk about. They have prominent events. They do have prominent events, like certain ceremonies and restoration projects that they do. The political influence of House Langmuir and things like that. The estates in the church, the main cathedral, the classrooms that they have. The interfaith harmony between the different faiths that worship there. So there's more than just one priest there. He's the one priest that rules them all, is in charge of the building, is the priest, NPC on the right-hand side. But there's more priests, though. The current affairs that's happening, so that could be part of the campaign, what's happening in the campaign. You could add that to it. And then on the right-hand side, we have the Radiant Key Sanctuary, the key figures. So Torbera Biegr, he's the presiding priest. He's a cleric of Rayo. And he has the Order of Rayo has their own article too. Now each order, it has each god. A lot of the gods have their own organizations, their own church organizations, and this one's called the Order of Rayo. The god Rayo has his own separate article too, so they're all intermingled in these different articles. So it's easy to look this stuff up. And this article tells you everything you need to know about that organization. How they worship, how they pray, things they do, their politics, who they get along with, who they don't get along with, things like that. And then he's known for his wisdom and calm demeanor. So we have a personality, we have his role, we have his background. He used to be a sage. Personality is wise, he's calm, and he's inclusive. The other priests, Fultus and Church of St. Cuthbert, are here as well. And yes, they work with harmony under Torbera's guidance and provide spiritual support to the community. But I did not create those NPCs. I just thought of that. Is realized I didn't. I could have. I should have. I don't know if it's needed or not. So if anybody want to comment down below or go to my Discord and talk about it, they're welcome to. If they need it for their campaign, let me know. But this is an opportunity to create a couple more NPCs here that I noticed. It's hard to create everything. I'm trying to get this done. I just did the entire city of Verbobonc, like over 100 locations and hundreds of NPCs and artwork. And I completed Etterboak, same thing, and now I'm in the middle of doing Penwick. We got dungeon masters running this campaign right now. They need this stuff done. I need it done so I can run my campaign again. Right now, that group is on hold until I get this done. I want to get it done first before I run them again, the new group through it. Okay, back to the map. Another major location is number 4. So this is another cathedral. It's the Temple of the Four Winds. Let's go ahead and take a look at this thing. We'll just go skip right past the brief article and go to the full article here. So this is dedicated to it's on the west side of Etterbook, west side facing the marketplace square. So it's very prominent. And as soon as they get to the marketplace across the river, and even on the bridge, they're going to see it towering over the marketplace. Because behind that is House Langmuir's manor. behind that church. Just to let you know how things look from the bridge, it helps when you're describing things to the players. So Etterboak has long been the breadbasket of the Viscounty of Verbobonc, and the worship of the Velari. The worship of the Velari deities is deeply embedded in its culture, because the people here are mostly Ardi. Because when they first, if you take a look at the history of the Viscounty, you'll know that centuries ago the Ardi migrated here, and before they were invaded, and they're the major population here, and so they brought their gods with them. So because the temple was established centuries ago by the early Eridan settlers and brought their agricultural deities with them. Over time, the temple's grown and evolved. The next part is a description of the exterior, the interior. I have a separate description of all 4 separate altars listed here, along with ceremonies and services for each individual god of the Velari. We have like Velnus, the god of sky, the goddess of spring, the goddess of summer, and the goddess of autumn, which is the 4 goddesses of the 4 seasons of the year for the Ardi. And we added below that is the politics and relationships with this temple and its priest and the local house Langmuir and the locals in the area. And then the current affairs. This is one of the times where I actually did add stuff that's pertinent to the campaign as a side quest, the Ettercap raids. Now, you'll come across a few of these locations. You'll come across a few of these locations in Etterboak that talks about this. It's a possible quest starter to exterminate, to seek out, find out where their lair is, and just exterminate these Ettercaps that's been plaguing the merchant roads and raiding the farm fields. So this is important. Some of the stuff I keep as a secret pop-up, but this one I didn't. On the right-hand side, which becomes real useful, is again a description of each of the priests of this location. We have High Priest Edric Velwind. He's the leader of the temple. The priestess Marilla Atrone, servant of Atroya. Priest Haldor Stoneheart. Priestess Solara Sumeril, and Priest Taran Brewmaster, the servant of Wenta. So and below that is the actual high priest himself, and a picture of him inside the actual church. Give you an idea what the place looks like. So scroll back to that. So this is an interesting location. If you have a cleric in your group that is a worshiper of one of these 4 gods, this is definitely a place of interest for them. Also, this is a place for a quest starter for the Ettercaps as well. Back to the main map. Number 5 down here. It was supposed to be an inn. I haven't keyed it. So if you have an inn and you want to place in Etterbook, this is a prime place to put it because it's not keyed. I had it in there originally, but I didn't like it, so I took it out. The next one is number 6. And this is an important place too. It's Langmuir Keep. It's basically the guardhouse. It's the Etterboak Guard barracks for the township. And it has a flavor text as well, what it looks like. 2-story solid stone structure built like a fortress. Proudly displays House Langmuir's pennants from the top of the walls. A description of everything there and all the NPCs there. I put some stats for the guards in case you need it. Look at the full article. And there's a picture of it there, of what the keep looks like. The scale's a little off, but that's what the keep tower looks like at least. You have the history, the political influence, the guard facilities like the living quarters, the armory, the training grounds, the politics, the recent developments, and the ongoing events that's happening. But on the right-hand side is Constable Davon Bosh. Full description of him, his personality, and his role here, and a picture of him. He's one of the ugliest NPCs I've created in this campaign so far. It's funny because I have some players that were complaining that all my NPCs are too good looking. Well, here's one for you. He's pretty ugly. Looks like a bulldog. Back to the map again. Number 7 is actually Langmuir Manor. The esteemed residence of Lord Lodovic Langmuir stands as a symbol of nobility and tradition in the Township of Etterboek. Let's go to the main article here because there's a lot of information here. It starts it off with flavor text, what the place looks like when you approach, them answering the door, I think. There's a picture on the right of what the actual manor looks like, and there's a description of the dining hall. This is important because one of the Living Greyhawk modules actually have you visit Langmuir Manor and talk to the Langmuirs or question them. And I can see that happening in this campaign without that module, it still could happen. I thought it would be very wise and very useful to have a description of things I know that will be needed in the campaign, that possibly could be needed. I like to be prepared. We have a dining hall description of what the place looks like, relationships with the lords, and the current affairs that's happening there. It goes on more and more about the relationship between the lord and the lady, and what they do in the Viscounty and paying their taxes and things like that. Also, on the bottom left, I added some dialogue of Brevin Voss when he welcomes the adventurers there, because I knew I was going to need it for my campaign. It's a description of the grand foyer. He meets them there at the entrance, and he's dressed with a dignified air. He's impeccably dressed, and he approaches them with a dignified air. And I have some answers, introductions, and possible answers to some questions that players typically would ask. So I add that there for my use, and you're welcome to use it too if you need to. On the right-hand side is the main house servant, Brevin Voss, his personality, history, and motivation. He's the guy that's always there, because the Langmuirs aren't always there. The Langmuirs have a manor in the city of Verbobonc as well, and they're on the city of lords, the Council of Lords. So they're not going to always be here. But they do encounter them on the road sometimes, which is a whole nother encounter from one of the Living Greyhawk modules, which is fun. On that, I list his duties, so you know what his job is. And I list his motivation, too, so it'll help you role-play him. Back to the map, just south of Langmuir Manor is the Jugulis family manor, which is right next door. And it's the heart of noble benevolence. And we have there's a full description on relations and family there, so let's take a look at it. So that's what he looks like. I have a description, of course, of the manor itself, inside and outside. The historical background to this place, the recent developments that's been happening, his political influence, the local governance, how he handles that, the day-to-day affairs, things like that. Basically, Paloma's hands-on approach in managing the day-to-day affairs of Etterbook makes her the central figure in the local governance. So it's pretty much her that governs the town. The estates and holdings, his primary residence, his agricultural lands, economic contributions, agricultural products, things like that. Then his relationships with the local church, with the current affairs of the different programs that are going on and political challenges that he's up against, and the conclusion. On the right-hand side is more description of him. So he has his own article of personality and things, but I added a lot of that here, not all of it, but on the right is what it looks like, his personality, his motivation, and her description, personality, and motivation, which is important. And I created a coat of arms for him, so it'll be distinguishable in the game. Okay, back to the map. We're going to start looking at some of the regular shops. I'm not going to look at them in detail. I'll let you guys do that. This is a public website, after all. You can follow along, too. Number 10 is a merchant house, a trade house. That way players can go there and buy and sell. Number 11 is the watchtower. It's a guard tower, and it watches over the docks and the bridge. And everybody can see this guard tower towering up high over the bridge and the docks. And the top is manned by crossbowmen, keeping an eye on things in case anything gets out of hand. And behind there is 12. Gull Manor is a resident of an NPC. He's the Reeve. We probably should take a look at that. This is important. Let's go ahead and look at the full article. Let's scroll down. And that's what the manor looks like. With added flavor text, what it looks like, and his estate, what it is, the historical background, and his political influence. So what this guy is, he's a sullen, boring man, extreme diligence to commitment to House Langmuir. He serves House Langmuir. He's got a personality, role, and motivation. So his job, though, is he holds the position of Reeve. It makes him a crucial figure in the administration of Etterbook's agricultural and social affairs. He's been appointed by the House, and his role is steeped in tradition and responsibility, ensuring the smooth operation of the manor's lands and the welfare of its tenants. He's in charge of the tenants. He's in charge of the farmers, of renting their lands out, of the peasants, things like that. And when they want to purchase a farm or pay their taxes, whatever, he's the one to go to. In fact, the picture on the bottom right-hand corner shows that. He looks like a tax man, and his job is to make sure that the lands are running smoothly and well, and that way they can pay their taxes to the Viscount. He presides over the village moot.
He supervises the agricultural activities. He ensures that all villagers fulfill their obligations, and his authority to be recognized and respected, though his strictness sometimes causes friction among the villagers. His agricultural policies, successful management of crops and land influences agricultural policies in the Viscounty. And also he's responsible for the tenant relations. Strict fair management style serves as a model for other reeves and other managements in there. And below the current affairs section, there's rumors. Recent rumors and slander against House Langmuir created unrest among the villagers, and he's got security concerns with Ettercaps in the region. They threaten the surrounding hills and the farmlands. Maintaining security of the village is his top priority. So this is another source of adventure to be had to exterminate those Ettercaps. A lot of these buildings are unkeyed. I did that on purpose. I don't want to key every single building. There'd be too many. So it leaves buildings available for dungeon masters to add. I actually did add some shops on the market square. We have Round Bottom's Trinkets, a trinket shop. Very interesting. It's got a cool, interesting character. And in the middle is Medissa Bakery, fresh baked bread and pastries. Great place for role playing. On the north side of the marketplace is the Smith. He's got a diverse range of forged goods. The shop is both practical resource for the community and a haven for those seeking finely crafted weapons and tools. And that description describes what is available for sale and what he can make. There's nothing more north of the village. There's just a bunch of farms that I do have numbered. So you can actually put farms out there, families, at the quest item. Also on the east side of the Knives Run is another great big farm that is left unkeyed. We'll go south of the village here to 29. 29 is Tudun the Carpenter. That's the local carpenter. He's got things happening in quest. And 27 is the Outfitter Trade Supply House. That's a place where you can trade items and buy and sell things for like traveling and camping and things like that. And 40 is the Lucky Coin Tavern. It's a gambling establishment. It's a tavern for gambling. And there's a lot of things going on there. And then 41 is the Golden Griffin Inn. It's another inn. This one caters to the elite. This is a very expensive, high-end inn that nobles would stay at, whether visiting Etterboak or traveling through. And then on the right, 38, is Lycid's Shack. This is an interesting location because this is where a paladin of Heronius is. Let's take a look at that article. So Lycid is a ex-paladin. He's a retired paladin and fisherman. And he's well liked by townsfolk and known for his exaggerated tales of adventure. So you can roleplay a lot with him. Basically, he's got little taglines that you can use, like fishing's a lot like life, patience, luck, and knowing when to reel it in. He's a benign character the players could visit and get information from in a quest. And he's basically fishing all the time, and he just talks. And so you can roleplay him up really well there. But it's something else you can use him for, too. And if you look at his picture down below, he's definitely older, retired, and you see him fishing on the Knobs Run there. So he's great. He could be just seen there as the players come through. They'll see him. Or you can use him as an NPC trainer for a Paladin of Heronius. So, like I said before, when players want to create a character, they have different choices. Let's go ahead and look at his character. They have a choice to come from different places, different towns, different cities. Also different temples, different churches. Like the city of Verbobonc has 2 mage schools. There's other mage schools too in the area of the Viscounty. So they don't have to come from, not everybody has to come from one place. Like in the Viscounty, there's 2 great monasteries of Heronius. There's one in the city of Verbobonc and there's one over at Rhinehurst. And the players have that option to be a paladin of Heronius. Yeah, you can be from one of those 2 places. You could just tell them what it's about, what it's like there, and they can decide. But this will be a third choice. What if they don't want to come from some big organization or city? What if they just want to be somebody that's nobody, right? Somebody from a small town, somebody that really starts off from the ground up. Maybe he was a boy that was raised by this ex-paladin and as a fisherman. So now he has the background skills of fishing, swimming, anything to do with the river, anything with fishing, or in a fishing boat. And so this will give him a reason why he has certain skill sets besides being a paladin. So this NPC can train him in all this stuff to become a first level paladin. And it'll be a benefactor to this player. This is where he goes for help. And so if this NPC ever needs greater help from the great church of Heronius, he can go to his superiors too. So this is just another option of a location a player could be from. It makes the campaign more interesting when you have choices like that. And taking a look at this article, everything here you need to know about him is here. What he looks like, his personality, his history, his motivation, the relationships he has, and the key points that you need to know about. Everything is there. Also, there's links on the right-hand side to the Holy Order of Heronius and the actual Heronius himself. Okay, back to the map. That's the fishing hut of Lycid. Scrolling down farther, I'll zoom out a little bit. There's nothing else keyed. There's another farm on the south end of the town there. And the road is a merchant road that keeps going south off the map. And as I have it labeled, you keep following that road, it'll take you to Cienega Valley. So there's two ways to get to Cienega Valley if you're a merchant. You can use a caravan and go down the road, or you can get a boat and take the Knobs Run down that way. Either way, there's pros and cons to that. On the right-hand side, on the east side of the Knobs Run, there's another fishing hut, a cottage, that's not keyed, that you can use for your own purposes. There's also a farm over here, all on its lonesome, doing its own thing, that's not keyed as well. And behind it is a thick woods. And I originally thought maybe I was going to have the Ettercaps come from there. So, the DM can do whatever he wants, but it's a good place for a raid to come from, to raid that. Maybe an Ettercap raiding gang group raided from those woods, from the south, from the Etters, and they raided that farm. And so the players are sent to this farm to question the farmer what happened and investigate, look for signs of the battle, of what happened to the livestock or what happened to the crops. And they'll find clues of what happened and tracks where they lead through those woods. And maybe they can track them down that way. So this is a good way to introduce an adventure in your campaign that's not just the Temple of Elemental Evil, but something to do before that. And this is a really good example. Also, what is keyed on the side of the river, though, is the cemetery. Apostate's Graveyard. It serves as the final resting place for villagers of Etterbook, dedicated to the Volari and the lawful good deities of the Radiant Sanctuary. There's a full article that covers everything from the caretaker to religious activities and events. The last location that we're going to look at here is at the crossroads on the east side of the river. And this one is an inn. It's called the Merchant's Rest Inn. It's a bustling establishment located on the eastern banks of the Nebs Run. What's interesting about this one is, let's zoom out. Let's say you're a merchant. And that road going east goes to Penwick. The road going north goes to the city of Verbobonc. The road on the other side of the river going south goes to Cienega Valley. And the road going through town to the west goes to Mull. So let's say you're a merchant and you're traveling from the city of Verbobonc to Penwick, or from Penwick to Verbobonc, or something like that. And you don't want to stop in Etterbook for some reason. Or you don't want to stay in Etterbook for some reason. That's what this inn does. This inn serves for that use of travelers that don't want to enter the village yet, or not planning to enter the village, and they stay there. So that's a great place for that. It gives them an option not to have to stay in town for whatever reasons they have. Okay, that wraps up my video on the Township of Etterboek. I have it keyed as much as you can need it, in the same vein as the village of Hamlet is. Not all the buildings are keyed, but most of the key ones are. Give you good examples of what the place is like, and give you some sample quests that might have anything to do with those Ettercaps that came from the Etters. I have an actual member of the Discord actually creating a dungeon in the Etters for the Ettercaps. It's pretty large and in depth, great. It's more than just an Ettercap lair cave that you typically would find on the internet. Just like a little small complex cave with some creatures living in there as their lair. Created some large adventure, much like the scale and size of some of these bigger modules. I was planning. He wants me to add it to the campaign world, and I was planning to incorporate the upper level, just enough to get to the Ettercaps, and optionally the rest of it can be added later, if anybody was interested in that adventure. Well, if you like what you see so far, please, to support me, come to my Patreon, my 3 Orcs Patreon. If you become a member there, not only do you get some gifts, but you become a member of the Discord channel, and you can collaborate and actually work on this with us as a whole to get this campaign going and completed and finished and done right the way you think it should be done. Doing that will also support my endeavor here, because I do spend at least 6 hours a day working on this stuff. and 7 days a week, and it's all I do besides run my D&D groups. And that'll support me greatly, and I really appreciate it if anybody were on my Patreon to help me with that.
Did you enjoy video? Consider tossing support on my Patreon. It's best way to support orcs. If you would like to see more content, subscribe and post comments below. It better not be bad.
Also, please subscribe below to my Three Orcs YouTube channel. This will give you updates on when my next videos are coming out. I'm constantly doing videos on different subjects. Lately, I've been focusing on this campaign project. I'm not doing so much of Dalmonwood right now. So if you'd like to see more of this, please subscribe below. And I hope your campaign becomes epic and fun as mine has been. Thank you.